Hey, you're here with Dr. Jodi, and this is season 3 of Anxiety, I'm So Done With You. This podcast is a teen and a young adult guide to ditching toxic stress and hardwiring your brain for happiness. If you're new here, grab a copy of my book, Anxiety, I'm So Done With You, because this series goes section by section through the book, going a little bit deeper, giving more examples, and telling more stories. Season 3, which goes along with Chapter 3, is expanding hope by looking at your skills and abilities. You are amazing. You have many skills and abilities. However, anxiety does not want you to know that, and it tries to block your view of them. But not anymore. In this season, we're going to bring them out into the open, giving you more access to them when you need them the most. And as this season progresses, you're going to envision yourself in a new way. As a person who is able, caring, confident, and determined. Thank you so much for listening, subscribing, and leaving me 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. Mental health problems are skyrocketing, especially among young people, and this series will help them cease judging, stop questioning, and start healing. Welcome to Chapter 3, Section 2, Activate Trust. In this episode, we will discuss trust issues. I'll share how to develop a deeper trust in yourself, how to keep on your ruby slippers, and what relationship red flags to look out for. And finally, I'll give you my best tips on how to develop your intuition. But before we start, I wanted to remind you that for ongoing practical tips for your brain, body, and spirit, you can hang out with me on TikTok at Dr. Jodi, DoctorJodi. I'm really excited about this chapter because we are activating your skills and abilities. A lot of times people go to a therapist and they're taught skills from that therapist's expertise, or they read a book and they learn what the author says is a good coping skill. That's great, but it's hard to embody new skills that come from expertise. If they're not something familiar or related to you, and then you can't do them, at the very least, you discard them, but at the very worst, you negatively judge yourself for failing them. What's good about this chapter is that instead of learning new things that you have no relationship to, we're going over categories of skills that you already have and can recognize. And then we're going to bring them online for you. All right, trust issues. Do you have trust issues? Trust issues sound like you have a problem. We actually say, I have trust issues, as if we're admitting a problem that we have. But trust issues just means that trust is important to you. And wouldn't it be more weird if trust wasn't important to you? You are a social being and you want to connect with people who care about you and love you. This takes trust. If you have had an experience in life when someone has hurt you, this breaks trust. Of course it does. And once trust is broken, it takes time to build it back up, even when you're dealing with somebody else. Because being hurt hurts your heart. And when your heart hurts, it feels awful and you don't ever want to feel that way again. Also, when people get hurt, they tend to blame themselves. So they conclude that it is them that is the problem because they trusted someone that hurt them. You are not a problem. You have trust issues because you are a human and care about the sanctity of trust. It is important in relationships. And people are limited, so they break trust sometimes. So all of us have had experiences when trust was broken. Sometimes it is little, and sometimes it is huge, and sometimes it is so painful that we carry it for a long, long time. Of course we do. Trust is important to us. People are important to us. Feeling loved and cared about is important to us. So in this section, Activate Trust, I remind you that the only person that you have to trust is yourself. And I give you a practical framework for how to think about this. The first thing is to recognize your skills in reading people. This means observing people and getting a read on what you can expect from them. It means testing the waters, developing trust slowly, and getting to know them before you are vulnerable. And I mean getting to know them really well before you are vulnerable with them. I know you have skills in observation because if you've had anxiety, you've spent a lot of time observing people. However, the anxiety voice and the worries usually try to spin everything negative. I want you to think about practicing your awesome skills in observing people with keeping what you are noticing at the center rather than you trying to figure anything out. When you try to figure things out, it is an invitation for the monkey mind. And we want to disempower the monkey, not empower the monkey. Here's an example of what you might be noticing. She's smiling. Her eyes look kind. She's complimenting her friend. When she talks to her friend, she's making eye contact. When she speaks to the teacher, she's polite. I never saw her interrupt anybody. When she walks past someone who drops something, she stops and helps them pick it up. I saw her stand up for somebody. These all indicate that she may be a nice person. This doesn't mean she is a nice person. These are just the initial observations. I wouldn't run up to her and tell her all my secrets. It just means that she's worth taking the next steps of saying hi, or asking a question about class, or complimenting her earrings. Take your time getting to know people. There is no rush. Some people could fake being nice for a short while, but nobody can fake it for too long. Get to know people slowly to see if they stay trustworthy. This is how you develop trust in yourself, by taking your time. It's important to note that even nice people hurt others sometimes, either by accident or if they're having a bad day and they make a bad choice. Sometimes nice people pull away because they are isolating themselves and it is not about you at all. They're sad or they're having anxiety or something like that. So even if you get close to someone who is a good person, there's still no guarantee that you won't be hurt, which is why I added 2 more steps to this framework. And the next one is keep on your ruby slippers. Yep, I'm back to making a Wizard of Oz metaphor here. In The Wizard of Oz, Dorothy has the ruby slippers on the whole movie as she and her friends are searching for the great and powerful Wizard of Oz to help her get home. And at the end, she finds out that she had the power to get herself home the whole time and that the power was in her ruby slippers. The ruby slippers symbolize her personal agency, her ability to affect what she wants to happen. If you take it a step further, it is about worth. Dorothy was looking for the wizard to see if he thought she was worthy enough to go home. All too often in social situations, people unconsciously leave their ruby slippers at the door. Or worse, they hand the ruby slippers to other people looking for confirmation for their worth. It does make sense that in social situations, we are looking to others to confirm our worthiness. We are not a self in a vacuum. We only know ourselves and see ourselves reflected off the people around us. That's why it's so important to surround yourself with good people. However, you don't want to give people your ruby slippers because that means they have full control over your self-concept. And I want you to have full control over your self-concept. When you see yourself reflected off the people around you, I want you to keep your ruby slippers so you decide what fits and what doesn't. You can choose who is the reflecting surface that you want to see yourself in, a bully or someone who really sees the good in you. You are going to be around difficult people sometimes because they are everywhere. And in chapter 2, line number 6, I gave you some tools on how to get away from them or block them. And I also have my energy shield training video about this on the blog post that goes along with this episode to assist you in dealing with difficult people that you cannot trust and luckily don't have to trust. Sometimes we have people at work or at home or at school who are difficult and we can't get away from them. We have to be in their presence sometimes. For those situations, keep your ruby slippers on and decide to give yourself some compassion. Take a step back and don't take anything they say into your heart. In that line number 6 section, I suggest an exercise on how to be kind to difficult people. Don't try this with a bully, but you can try it with someone who's crabby or a bit negative. Assume that they've been hurt and think of them as a fragile person, because that is what they are. Show them some kindness. Acknowledge them. You don't have to spend too long with them, but compliment them here and there and smile at them and see if you notice a change in them. Most people are sad or feeling bad about themselves because some situation or someone has hurt them. Something in their life has been lost or threatened. Your small kindnesses could make them feel valued, and you might notice that this makes a huge difference. It's important to note that in this experiment, you are in a power role, so you are safe. You're not opening your heart and being vulnerable with these difficult people. But if they get mean to you at all, you could abort the experiment at any time. I'm not sure if you know what I mean by being in a power role. I mean, in those exchanges, you are not expecting them to do something to give you worthiness. You are not giving that crabby person your ruby slippers so they have power over how you see yourself. You are keeping them. It also doesn't mean that you have power over them. Though hopefully your compliments are going to contribute to them feeling good about themselves. You're not controlling their worthiness. There are power dynamics in all relationships, and there's some roles that affect those dynamics. For example, a teacher is in a power role over a student because they're the adult and an authority figure in the school setting, but plus they give the student grades. A teacher really ought to minimize those power dynamics whenever they could, but also recognize that they're there because they come with a responsibility not to abuse that. Social identities affect power dynamics too. For example, white people have unearned power and privilege over people of color. As much as we wish that that didn't exist, it is important to know that it has and it does exist so that we can dismantle it. We can't change it if we're blind to it. Another example of power differences is in gender relations, or heteronormativity, or cisnormativity. We need to see and dismantle those power differences as well. Some people use power dynamics to control people. This is that pseudo power that I was talking about before. It is bullying and abusive. And it happens all the time in friend relationships, dating relationships, adults and young people's relationships. It happens way too much. In this section, I list some red flags to look for in case you're interacting with a person like this, or if you're not sure if you're interacting with a person like this. I'm going to read those off because there is a lot of doubt that comes up around these kind of relationships, and you may need to hear them over and over. They keep saying how perfect you are, but then they keep critiquing everything that you do. They say that nobody else would love you as much as they love you. When they're angry, they say it's your fault. They text or call you very, very often. They tell you they would die without you, or they might kill themselves if you break up with them. They don't respect your boundaries, and when you try to set them, they make fun of you for it. They want to get close to you way too quickly. They act angry or jealous about you being with other friends. They roll their eyes and they try to act like you're overreacting. They're mean when arguing. They name call you or they blame you. They might use substances. They're not kind to other people, like their parents, adults, or your friends. They have rapid, cycling, unexplained mood changes. They're secretive. They make a lot of excuses. They make you feel stupid or guilty. They let you pay for everything. They seek a lot of attention and they need constant reassurance that they're important to you. They hardly ever apologize, and they gaslight you. Gaslighting is another buzzword that is all around the internet, and sometimes it's misunderstood. Gaslighting means that someone is making fun of you when you're setting limits, or when you're complaining about something they did, they make you think that it's you, or they make you think that you're overreacting or crazy, or they might make fun of you for setting those limits. This is a tactic to get you to stop setting limits or stop blaming them or accusing them of doing something. They want you to stop looking at them as the problem and start looking at yourself as the problem. So it's a distraction from what they're doing. If you don't know, the term gaslight comes from a movie of the same name. And in the movie, a husband is abusing his wife and he's giving her medicine to make her think that she is crazy. And he's also turning the gas lights on and off in the house to make her feel like she's hallucinating. If any of these red flags sound familiar or you are doubting yourself at all, get an opinion from somebody else that you trust. Tell them what is going on and see what they say about it. That person who has power over you typically is trying to isolate you because those connections tend to open your eyes. The controlling person can't control everyone. So find someone who cares about you and tell them everything that is happening. The third step in the framework is handling it. Because if you do step 1, observing, and step 2, keeping your ruby slippers on, you will enter relationships. So some people are going to hurt you still. That's the risk that we take when we enter any relationship. But building trust in yourself means that you know if something happens, you can handle it. I've given you the tools to prevent a lot of bad things from happening, but there still will be some. People are limited. Even when they don't mean to hurt you, and sometimes when they don't even know that they hurt you, they hurt you. So it's important to know that you could handle it if that happens. Knowing you can handle it will help you take risks when getting into relationships. You are minimizing the risks with the skills, but there still are some risks, and you can handle it. I know it's painful, and I know it's hurt in the past when someone's hurt you, but you recovered. You recovered and you can recover. Knowing you can handle it will keep your anxiety at bay, will help you take risks and get in relationships, and relationships are worth it. Next, I want to give you my 4 best tips on developing your intuition, because this is going to help you in so many other areas, especially in relationships. Your intuition is your inner guidance system. You have so much wisdom inside of you that you could tap into. Humans are incredibly intuitive. We know things that we don't know why we know them. Part of it's from our intelligence, things that we've known about from the past and maybe don't remember, but we still have that intelligence there. And part of it's from our emotions, because we get stuff and we feel things that we don't know how we feel them because we're sensitive. And part of it is from our spirit or our higher wisdom or the energy field around us. Or we might tap into our ancestors, or if you're a spiritual person and you believe in a higher power, you tap into that relationship with that higher power. The problem is that those voices of anxiety and self-doubt get in the way of your inner wise voice that you have. So I'm giving you 4 basic tips to open up those channels and develop your intuition. The first one is get out of the monkey mind. You knew that was going to be something, right? The monkey mind tries to pretend it's your wise voice and your protecting voice, but it is not. It'll keep you arguing with yourself, defending and berating yourself as long as you let it. The monkey mind says it wants to figure things out, but that's a guise. It wants to keep questioning and arguing. The second tip is to close some circles. We all have tons of circles in our mind taking up space. An open circle is a task that you have started or something that you desire to do, and it sits there like an open tab on your computer. It takes up a lot of space and clutters up your mind. To close a circle, you either have to do it or decide not to do it, and it takes that circle off your mind. When you close circles, you are clearing your mind clutter, and you'll feel so much lighter and happier without millions of open circles in your mind. And the third tip is to give yourself some space when you're asking yourself a question. Take a moment to center yourself. Imagine your feet rooting into the ground and imagine your body calm. Sometimes I place my hand on my stomach and I follow at least one breath going in and out very, very slowly. And then I ask my intuition a question, and I wait, and I listen. When you rush things, you have a sense of desperation, and then your anxiety is going to answer your question, not your intuition. And the fourth tip is to practice with something benign. Like ask your intuition an easy question, like what do you want to eat right now? Or which sweatshirt should you wear today? It's helpful to start small and build that trust in yourself. Get used to stopping and asking yourself questions and then noticing the results when you do it. This invites you to be in that witnessing state again that I talked about in the last episode. You're watching yourself ask yourself questions and you're seeing the results of those answers. This will help you get to know if you could trust yourself. When you develop your intuition, you activate that deeper trust and confidence in you. And I do have a teen intuition course that you'll find in the blog post that goes along with this episode. That link is in the show notes. I am so glad that you spent this time with me today and you listened to this podcast, Anxiety, I'm So Done With You, with me, Dr. Jodi. In this episode, we discussed trust issues. I told you how to develop a deeper trust in yourself, how to keep on your ruby slippers. We went over some red flags in relationships, and I gave you my best tips on developing your intuition. Remember, anxiety is invisible. There are so many more people in your life that are struggling that you may not even know about. Sharing my podcast or videos with your friends could actually save lives. And also, it would help so much if you left me a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Next, we dive into Chapter 3, Section 3, Activate Motivation. Read or listen to that, and I'll see you there.